Hey guys, this is Colin from Blackjack Apprenticeship, and I am joined with Richard Munchkin, who is a member of the Blackjack Hall of Fame. He co-hosts the show Gambling with an Edge, and I'm sure you guys know who he is. Thanks so much for joining me, Richard.
Oh yeah, happy to be here.
So you remember we did a podcast, it was 8 years ago, and I came over to your house. Yeah. And,
I remember it well. I didn't realize it's been that long. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't either, but I listened back to the conversation, and one of the things that really stood out to me is how much I've actually learned since then about advantage play, because I've just primarily been a card counter, but I really think I owe Gambling with an Edge a lot to what I've learned over the years. So I wanted to thank you for the entire advantage play community for what you guys have done with that show. So thank you for that.
Oh, thanks. That's nice to hear. It's good, because you put it out there and it's kind of just like sending it off into a void, and you never really know. But occasionally I do get an email or something from somebody who says, that Gambling with an Edge has made them a lot of money or whatever, and so I'm really happy to hear that, because that's what makes it worth doing.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, it's very often a part of forum discussion fodder. It's even there's like a sub thread of our forum that's about Gambling with an Edge episodes where people can, it sparks conversation. So it's been meaningful to, I know, a lot of advantage players. But moving on, do you remember the story you told? We did a party. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it was actually just last fall. We did a little bit of a get-together party for some advantage players and Blackjack Apprenticeship people, and you told a story there, and it's been requested that you retell that story for our audience. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, sure. It's really about how I got started with card counting, and what happened was I grew up outside Chicago, and I went to college in Chicago. And I made my way through college playing backgammon and poker. And back then, backgammon was really popular. And it was like every bar you went to had backgammon tables in them. And many of these would hold local tournaments. And so I would play in a lot of these tournaments. And I was playing in one. And a dentist that I knew said he had just come back from Las Vegas, and that, he made money at blackjack, and he had a way of making money at blackjack. Now, I was obsessed with gambling, but I was like, oh, yeah, right. Okay, you got a system. And he was like, no, this is legit. Like, this is math. You can win at blackjack by counting cards. And then he started to describe it to me. And I was kind of surprised that I had never heard of this, but he recommended a book called Playing Blackjack as a Business. Now, this is in the 70s, okay? So there was not a lot of literature about blackjack at the time. And so I had to order the book specially from a bookstore, and I got the book, and I thought, wow, this is really legit. And so I wasn't 21 years old yet, and I started practicing in my basement. I learned basic strategy backwards and forwards, and I would deal hands myself. And so my gift to myself for my 21st birthday was one of these 4 days and 3 nights in fabulous Las Vegas, all include, airfare and hotel. And so I flew out to Las Vegas right after I was 21, and I won like a little over $200, and only using basic strategy. I didn't. Oh, wow. I hadn't learned to count cards yet. I mean, I was trying, but I really hadn't learned yet. So just with basic strategy, I won like $200, and I thought, man, if I can win like this just with basic strategy, just think how much I can win if I learn to count cards. So my plan was to finish college and then move to Las Vegas, and I didn't have a big bankroll, so I thought I'll get a job dealing blackjack, and I can practice counting cards 8 hours a day while I'm dealing. So that's what happened. I moved here. I started practicing while I was dealing. And then after work, I would go out and play. And back then, you could play single deck tables with a $5 minimum. And there were 4 deck tables with a $1 minimum.
Oh, wow.
So, and on the strip, it was all stand 17. There wasn't really surrender around, but it was stand on soft 17. So the single deck was even off the top.
Wow.
And there was a backgammon club, and of course I would go play backgammon. So the card counting community was really pretty small. So I started meeting a lot of guys. And a guy comes to me one day and he says, "Hey, there's this Australian guy in town and he wants to play backgammon for a lot of money." And I said, set it up as much as he wants to play for. Because at that time, in my own mind, whether it's true or not, I thought I was certainly one of the top 20 players in the world. And any of the 20 guys that were better than me, none of them were from Australia. So I said, set it up. And so the day came where I was supposed to go play, and I took a couple of friends of mine with me who were other backgammon players, just in case it turned into a chouette, which is backgammon for more than two people. And when I got there, the first thing the guy said to me is, "Look, I've done a lot of calling around about you," and he tells me I'm seriously outclassed. So I don't want to. We were supposed to play backgammon for like $50 a point, and now he's like, but if you want, I'm here. This was at the Desert Inn. I'm here on a comp. We can play for small stakes and, order lots of room service and have a party. And I said, all right, that sounds great. Yeah. And there were a bunch of other blackjack players there that were friends of his. So it became this party for a week, ordering all this room service and playing backgammon for small stakes. And the guys, one of the Australians there, his name is Alan Woods. And if you read my book, Gambling Wizards, there's a whole interview with Alan. He went on to make $1 billion in horse racing. Mm-hmm. And at the end of a week, Alan says to me, "How come you guys are not playing blackjack for more money?" And I said, "Well, we don't have a big bankroll. So we're red chip players," because by this time I had learned to count and we were out counting cards for nickels. And he said, "Well, how about I put up $20,000 and you three guys play for me. And if you double the bankroll, then we'll split it 60-40, 60 to him as the investor." Mm-hmm. And I said, "You've known us a week and you're going to give us $20,000 to go gamble in the casinos and report back to you how we did?" And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out $20,000 and slid it across the table to me. And I was just blown away. But that is how I really started playing blackjack professionally.
That is such an amazing story. So did you guys double the bankroll?
No. So what happened was I could not win. I went on a 160-hour losing streak. And now I should tell you, we were playing all shoe games. Many of these shoe games, there were many 4-deck games with 1 deck cut or less. Yeah. There were 6-deck games with a 26-card cut. Oh, and man. We were spreading from a nickel to 2 hands of 200 on these games with tremendous penetration. Yeah. And I just could not win. So I had Alan and other people go out with me and sit at the table with me and count me down to make sure that I wasn't playing wrong. And we did this 3 or 4 times. And every time they said, "No, you didn't make any mistakes. Just keep playing." But then what happened was at the end of the 160 hours, Alan said, "I have to go back to Australia, so we're going to have to end the bankroll here." And the bankroll was stuck, most of it because of me. Yeah. And so now Alan was playing on a team, and when he was leaving, he said, "I've talked to the guys on my team, and, I've talked to them about you guys joining them." And one of my buddies, Craig, joined them. The second one, Timmy, decided to go to New Mexico and get a master's degree and become a teacher. And I was like, "This sucks. I can't win. I'm just going to, stick with my job dealing blackjack."
Oh, man.
And so that's what happened. Now, so Craig joined that team. I went back to just dealing, and Craig started making money like crazy. They were just doubling bankrolls like in a week. And their bankroll started out really small, $10,000 or $20,000, but they just kept, doubling and doubling. And Craig came to me. Thank you, Craig. And he said, "Look, this works. We're making a ton of money. You should give it another try." And I said, "Okay, I'll give it another shot." and so I went back, and now I had to be tested, right? Because I had this terrible record. So my test was by one of the guys on the team. His name was Bill Benter.
Oh,
and so we go to the Golden Gate, and I get bought in, and I'm there, and I've got all these green chips, and Bill comes to the Golden Gate wearing a suit and tie. And he walks up to the table that I'm playing on, and he buys in for 3 crumpled $1 bills, because it was a $1 table. So the dealer is changing his $3, and the pit boss comes running down the pit, and he's like, "You can't play," pointing the bill. So they backed us off. We went down to a place called the Orbit Inn, which then later became the Western, and they had a $25 max, and I just changed my units to $5 units and tested out, and I tested fine, and I ended up joining that team with that Bill was on.
And you finally started winning.
And I finally started winning, and the rest is history.
Well, with that initial $20,000, like, hey, here's a bunch of money, I'll back you. Did you ever get a chance to pay that forward to another young Advantage player?
Boy, I don't know, actually. I'd have to think about, certainly my son, but not that I recall ever bankrolling somebody like that. Oh, wait a minute. No, I did bankroll somebody. Now that I probably have done it more than once, but I just haven't thought about it. Those times that I did that did not work out well.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Well, that's a good answer. So people shouldn't start emailing you and asking you to just hand them $20,000.
Yeah. And like Alan, most of the people that I know that have tried to do that kind of thing, it has not worked out well.
That's interesting.
But I think I did end up, making money for Alan eventually, because this is sort of an example of the power of networks. 1986, Alan calls me and he says, "Hey, I have a game that I want you to go play, and I'll bankroll it, and we'll split the money." And I said, well, at that time, I was playing on a team with Daryl Purpose, who many people know that name, and I've been playing with him for over 30 years. And a few other guys. And I said, look, I'm playing with this team, and I'm committed to them. I can't go off and play by myself. And he says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you guys the game, and you all can go play it. And whatever you guys were going to bet, just bet twice as much. Wow. And I'll put up half the bankroll. And so I ran it by the team, and they were like, yeah, that sounds great. They had all met Alan by this point. And the game was in Korea, and it was Advantage off the top. And, we ended up winning like $1.5 million.
Oh my gosh.
And Alan actually, at some point, I think we won about $500,000. And at some point, Alan said, look, I don't want to invest anymore. I feel guilty taking all this money for doing absolutely nothing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Alan was an enormous influence in my life. Actually, there's another story in Gambling Wizards in the interview with Alan about his forays into booking World Cup soccer. And this was another one of those deals where he called me up and he said, hey, I'm getting all this action because all these Chinese bookies want to lay off their action on World Cup soccer to me. Do you want a little piece of it? And I was like, yeah, sure. Right. You're going to have an edge, right? He's the bookie. He goes, okay, I was thinking, I'll give you a 0.25%. I was like, 0.25%. Okay. All right. Thanks. It's free EV, but, not much. Anyway, it gets to the finals, and he calls me up and he says, listen, you have that 0.25%, and the finals are coming. And he goes, I was thinking about moving you down to 0.1% because I don't know how big a swing you want to take. I was like, Alan, at 0.25%, how big a swing can I take? And he goes, $125,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, go ahead, move me down to a 10th. So yeah, again, I ended up making a bunch of money on that just because he called me up and offered it to me for nothing. I mean, if he had lost, obviously I was, I had a portion of the downside as well. But it's still it's EV that I certainly wouldn't have had if he hadn't just called me up and offered it to me.
That's a great example of networking that he was willing to give valuable information that benefited him, but he wasn't just looking to gain. He was looking to find a win-win situation, which seems to be the foundation of networking as an advantage player.
Yeah, and he wasn't asking for a free roll, right? I mean, he was willing to put up money, win or lose, which I think are the best kinds of deals to have.
Absolutely. So I had a question about this. If I have it right, this play you guys did in Korea, was that for 3 years?
Yeah, we lasted 3.5 years. And what happened was very early on, the first couple of months, I walked into the casino one day and I counted 40 card counters that were all there.
Gosh.
And there was sort of this knowledge that everyone had that if you did not bet more than 3 hands of 200, they wouldn't throw you out. But I looked at this, and now you could eat at the tables, and these people, this was just like a job. They would come in, sit at the table, order their orange juice and their omelet, and stay there for 10 hours a day. And we, my team, we did not want to bet $200. We were the limit was $3,000, and that's what we were betting. And I called up the team, and I was like, "This is not sustainable, right?" And now, the casino was making more money than any casino I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, wow.
Because the Japanese economy was booming at that time, and all of these players were Japanese. And you know how if you go into an average casino, the average player walks up with $100 bill, basically. Yeah. Here, the average buy-in was 1,000.
Oh, wow.
It was just mind-boggling how much action these people were getting. So anyway, I said, look, if we get Japanese big players, they're never going to throw a Japanese big player out of here, So I went back to LA. Daryl and I put ads in Japanese newspapers.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
I had done shows in Japan. And so a couple of the dancers from the shows that I had done, one of them was married to a Japanese guy. And we wanted Japanese guys who had Japanese passports. So, when they would come in from Tokyo, not from the U.S. So we found big players, and that's what we did. We would sit there and bet minimum, and they were gorillas, so we would tell them how much to bet and exactly how to play every hand, and that lasted for 3.5 years. And what happened was one of the fleas in the casino, a Japanese flea, figured it out eventually.
What's a Japanese flea?
Oh, a flea is a guy in the casino who's basically a degenerate that's always broke, and they're just always hanging around the casino, and they're always trying to bum money from people.
Yeah.
And in this case, the guy just happened to be Japanese. Our big player was eating in the restaurant, and this guy came and sat down at his table and said, "Hey, could you loan me $10,000?" And our, big player said, "No, I can't give you any money." And the guy said, "Well, gee, what about the American guys that you're always playing with? What about them? They seem to have a lot of money." And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he was like, he basically tried to blackmail the BP.
Yeah.
Said, "If you don't give me money, I'm going to tell the casino." And the BP blew him off. And then, sure enough, he went and ratted us out. And so they started barring the white people, right? And this was the nicest barring I've ever had in my life. They basically came and invited me to the back room, and we'd drink tea, and they offered me snacks, and we're just talking about nothing. And after 5 minutes, finally, the guy says, "So sorry, you cannot play blackjack anymore." Wow. And I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm only betting $5 a hand." "Oh, I'm so sorry. You cannot play blackjack anymore." So that's what happened. They barred all the white people.
That's incredible.
actually, I should say before that, they tried to bar the big player. And the big player said, I will go to the TV stations in Tokyo. I will go to the newspapers. I have friends in the media. You will never get another player from Japan. And they were like, oh, no. You can still play. Just instead of 3,000, you can only bet 1,000. He was like, okay. So we did that for a while. And then this happened. And they started barring the white people. And then the jig was up.
That is incredible. So were you single at the time, or were you married?
I was single at the time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
So I was spending a lot of time over there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming you just lived over there for 3 years, or would you go back and forth?
Well, we had an apartment, but yeah, we would all go back and forth. So we didn't want the same face at the table all the time.
Sure.
So we would go back and forth. We'd go for 2 weeks and then go away for 3 or 4 weeks and then go back, that kind of thing.
Wow. Is that the largest play you've been a part of?
The largest land-based play I've been a part of.
Okay.
There was even more money to be made online back in the heyday.
Okay. Interesting. So let's back. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you is kind of what started your transition from card counting to pursuing other advantage plays.
Oh, right away. I mean, when I first started counting cards and had that horrible losing streak, I realized two things, right? The edge was really small. Mm-hmm. And the heat was really big. And I should say back then, the shuffles were the easiest one-pass shuffle that you can possibly imagine. So the team that I joined with Bill Benter was entirely devoted to shuffle tracking. We were not straight counting. We were all shuffle tracking. And I started playing hole cards at that time, too. And there was this big discussion because some guys had an ethical dilemma about hole cards and others didn't. And, how should the hours be counted? And, there were all those kind of discussions. And after I played with that team for a while, so back to your question, I transitioned right away from straight counting into shuffle tracking and hole cards. And also there were also these discussions. Some guys did not trust handheld games, especially in Reno. So when that team broke apart, that was the first time I retired. Back in like 1982 or something, and I moved to Los Angeles to get involved in the film business, and then something came up with Daryl. Then that's when I started playing with Daryl. He was going to he was looking for bankroll. He was going to use a shuffle tracking computer, and so I made my first trip to Europe with Daryl with the shuffle tracking computer. And then when I started to play again, I started playing with Daryl instead of the guys I'd been playing with in the past. Okay,
and you told that story last time. 8 years ago about the computers in Europe, and how all that went down. So, and just to reiterate to people, it was legal at the time to be using.
Yes, yeah. And the reason he wanted to go to Europe first to work out all the kinks before he played within the United States.
Oh, interesting.
And it was legal at that time. The only places in the United States that were open were Nevada and Atlantic City. There were no other casinos. So and those were going to be big, big places to make money, and he wanted to make sure that he had everything down and smooth before playing. Sure,
that makes sense. So it seems to have become kind of a running joke that you're retired until you aren't, until you come out of retirement.
Yeah.
What's kind of your personal criteria for coming out of retirement, or even going into retirement? Is it that you just find something that you want to spend your time on? Is it financial? Is it some combination?
Well, the current iteration, if it's a play that is really unusual and looks like, Well, being really unusual, it'd be a part of it. So, for example, in that New York Times article with the craps play,
Hmm.
you know, that was going to be fun. I like it has to be. I like the people I'm working with. It's something unusual or different, and the other possibility would be is if it's in a location I really wanted to go to.
Okay.
So,
Can
I'd be
you?
much more likely to go to some play in the south of France than Iowa in the middle of winter.
Okay. Can you give the brief version of the story of the craps play?
Basically in Oklahoma, they had to. I mean, people can just Google New York Times
Sure.
advantage player Richard Munchkin or something like that, and they'll find it. But it was basically they couldn't use dice to play craps, and they did not design the game really well. So we found a way to take advantage of it. I
Okay.
shouldn't say we. I mean, James Grosjean found a way to
Yeah.
take advantage of it, and
Okay.
I was. Basically a gorilla doing what I was being told.
Uh-huh. So, how much time would you and your partners regularly put into learning new skills or maintaining your skills?
Um, wow. Certainly in the beginning, a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot, a lot. Almost everybody had, again, because we were shuffle tracking, almost everybody had stacks of cards in quarter deck increments in their apartment, that they were putting into discard racks to estimate how many cards it were, things like that. I spent a lot of time learning to sequence, but as the years went on, less and less. But if I were to go out on a sequencing play, I would certainly, brush up and study
Yeah.
or whatever.
How many hours do you think you put into mastering sequencing?
I would say probably. I mean, and I'm just pulling a number out of my ass because I really don't know, but I'm guessing probably 100 hours at least.
Yeah.
Not in a casino. And then you're really not learning until you actually get into a casino and try to do it for real.
Yeah.
Even more so than card counting, right?
Yeah.
There's a big step when you actually get into a casino when you're learning to count cards. But with sequencing, it's even more, it's more difficult going to the actual table and trying to I find it exhausting,
Mm.
really exhausting. And it reminded me a lot of playing chess tournaments where you're so focused on something for hours
Hmm.
that by the time you're done, you're just a babbling idiot. Um, so in the beginning, maybe I could only do 3 shoes and I just couldn't do it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, so it just takes time in the casino. The problem is there just aren't the games anymore.
Yeah.
That was a really fun game to play, but there just weren't many opportunities.
Yeah. Do you find, I mean, I hear occasionally about a one pass shuffle, but
Yeah, that's
I
why
don't really.
people ask me about should I learn to shuffle track? I want to learn to sequence, and I'm like, why would you? I mean, unless you're doing it just sort of as a hobby to
Yeah.
learn a new skill, uh, find a game, then learn it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 Well, I guess the reason I brought up even this topic is I think that it's good for people to hear about how a professional treats advantage play as their profession. I think it's kind of easy, you get into card counting, or at least for myself, I got into card counting and I'm math minded. I had a math degree. I was a good student in college, all that stuff, good work ethic, but it felt like, oh, I'm learning to play a game. It wasn't like I'm starting a career. But then when I talk to advantage players that it is their career, that it's a different level. I follow some professional sports, and it's amazing. The top athletes, they treat, or they even say with the NFL, for some people, the difference is the people that can treat it like a profession versus those that are just as athletically gifted but don't have that same drive.
It's all about work ethic. No question. It is all about how hard you work. And that's why, these guys like, Rimo and Yoshi and all that are like driving 6 hours a day, every day, and in and out of the, I mean, good for them. Part of my problem was I was kind of lazy. Like I didn't mind the studying at home.
Yeah.
But oh man, I hated the driving. Like you go on a trip to St. Louis and then you're done and you have to drive across the state to Kansas City and I hated that part of it.
It seems that in some capacity though, you have to have this very high level approach. So, one of these days you'll have to stop in for Joe's talk. He always gives at the end of our boot camp. It's like the last talk. And I feel like it sums up the entire weekend, but it shows the level of effort he puts into being a professional. And it's different, for him, it's primarily been card counting, but it is a high level. It's not hey, I learned this game and I walk into casinos and I make all this money. He treats it like a career. But I think for you, it sounds like that effort has been put into not just learning, but mastering a wide variety of skills. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think it is. And the other thing, if you look at a guy that basically the best player ever, James Grosjean, here's a guy who studies the center of cards, clips out a little 1-inch square in the center of the card, of the face cards, to be able to differentiate between a jack and a queen and a king. Or you could just show him a piece of the hat and he's going to know what the card is. And it's just, somebody who puts in that level of effort, well, yeah, they're going to be freaking great. I mean, because he's focused so much on, whole cards that he wants to be able to know that card if he sees any tiny little sliver of it from any angle.
That's a really good example. While on the topic of hole carding, I know this is one of the questions that one of our members had, is that in your interview of Refinery, you talked about how many people have said that they could not see a hole card until someone pointed it out, and now they can't unsee it. Is that how it was? Is that how it was the first time you saw a hole card? Or did someone point it out to you?
No, I knew. And back then, remember, there were two kinds of hole cards back then because they checked under 10s and aces. So there were first basers, which were everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And basically we didn't even bother to play unless it was 100%. Back then it was like, oh, the guy's only, 70%. Nah, I'm not going to play that game. Now I was bad at playing first basers because you need to be tall for those games. But no, to answer your question, no one had to show it to me. I don't know how I first knew. But the games were so much easier then that, it wasn't as hard to see. Like, for example, if people were around 20 years ago when 3-card poker first came out, they would not have to have someone show them how to see a hole card in 3-card poker. I mean, they were coming out of that machine, like waving it in front of your face before they put it down. So, but it's actually good when the games get tougher, because when they're too easy, you have way too many players.
Yeah.
It's just like the law of the jungle, right? There are too many animals and they eat up all the grass and then they all starve,
But you at least knew to look for it. It sounds like that it was something that was discussed
Colin, you know what here was my superpower. When there are teams, there are different people who do different things, right? You have the guy who is the math guy who sits at home and analyzes stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
And you have guys who are scouts that will be out there, 15 hours a day going from place to place to place looking for stuff. And what my strength was I knew how to network. I knew everybody. And at the time, I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. I just did it because it came natural to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was the guy who Alan Woods called when he had the game in Korea. And so that benefited my whole team, right?
Yeah.
So, and there were many examples of things like that where, expanding your network, that was what I brought to my team, was the network.
Wow. That's awesome, because that brings a lot of context to, the stories you've told, or even probably Gambling Wizards in some ways. But it was also my next question, so you answered it before I even asked it.
Yeah.
Is what was your main skill that you brought to partnerships or teams?
And by the way, I don't think you can fake that.
No.
You know what I mean? It's either who you are or it's not. Just like you can't fake being a numbers guy. You either can write code and analyze things or not,
Yeah. You could probably grow in that skill. You can develop it, but
sure.
If you don't have it, it's going to come across that you're just kind of nosy and irritating, as opposed to, someone that provides value in being networked with.
Yeah, well, and you have to provide. It's always a two-way street. The other thing is teams need a manager. No matter how loosely formed they are, teams need someone to make the decisions and go, okay, we're going to Iowa in the middle of winter or whatever, So that that's another skill. Yeah,
that was, I think, what I think some people think it's crazy that Ben and I charged to run the Blackjack team, but it wouldn't have run itself.
No, any big team. And by the way, when the Korea thing happened, we ended up with, I think I've told this story before, we ended up with money in 6 different currencies on 4 different continents. And not only do you need a manager, you need serious freaking accounting. And after that, I realized I really don't want to be part of a big team anymore.
Yeah.
I'm
too complicated.
Much happier with, 2 or 3 or 4 guys. We play for a weekend and we chop it up at the end of the weekend, and, and we play, that kind of way.
But it doesn't sound like you regret the Korea 3 years.
Oh no, you don't know something until you learn it. You know what I mean? And I didn't know. I mean, basically, it became like a job, right?
Yeah.
It was sort of corporate.
Do you think that's why you went to start making films after that?
Well, no, I always had 2 loves, right? I started out in the theater, and my degree was in theater, and I always wanted to go to LA and be an actor, basically. And I found out pretty quickly that acting in film and television was not like acting on stage. And so I did not want to do that anymore. And I moved over into directing, which I loved. But, the film business, the thing that's great about the gambling business, I keep mentioning my book, not that, I'm trying to tout the book, but Chip Reese, in the interview with Chip Reese, he says, like, you are as successful as you want to be in gambling. Like, you work as much as you want, as hard as you want. You put as much, whatever effort you want, right? It really is a meritocracy. Whereas in the film business, you're constantly at the mercy of someone else trying to get them to give you the job. Yeah. And so I always made my money gambling because I just was not making enough money in the film business. So I've always had my kind of feet in 2 different worlds there.
I guess I was thinking if the Korea play, if it started to feel like just like a grind, even if the money was good, I understand saying, let me focus on, this other passion for a while.
Well, that's what happened when Korea ended. Right.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
after when
Exactly.
Korea ended, I retired again until the next thing came up.
Well, I know you're saying you don't want to tout Gambling Wizards, but I reread it recently during this quarantine, and yeah, I remember the first time I asked if I could interview you. This is probably more than 8 years ago, and I said, oh, we could even promote your book, and you laughed and you said, Colin, I've placed bets bigger than I've made off that book.
Oh, by a mile. By a
Yeah.
mile.
So
Yeah, that's why I say I don't want to. I guess what I should say is I don't want this to be like a commercial for the book. First of all, it's
yeah,
20 years old, okay? But just to give some people some perspective, because it always used to make me laugh when people would say, "Oh, he can't play." Not about me, but anybody
yeah,
who writes a book, like, "Oh, he can't play. He's making money off his books," right? Okay, that book has been out for 20 years. I think I've made a total of $10,000 off that book.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And I
yes,
totally get it.
I've
But
definitely placed bets bigger than that.
well, that being said, some of the stories in there are so high level. It feels like you're getting into the mind of the top 1% of the top 1% of professional gamblers. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if you agree or disagree.
No, that's true. Billy Walters, Alan Woods,
Yeah.
Stan Thompson is the guy who started Pinnacle Sports. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. They are the top 1% of the top 1%.
So when you were conducting those interviews, did you ever think I need to be doing more of what they're doing, or did you already know what, the level of what they were doing?
Well, no, I didn't think I ought to be doing what they're doing because I didn't have the skills, right? I mean,
Okay.
To bet horses or sports, you need to be a computer programmer who understands modeling, right? And I'm not that. Poker, it's just not a lifestyle that I
Mhm.
like, right? I don't want to sit in a chair for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
So no, I really didn't think I should do what they're doing. I liked the area of gambling that I was involved in.
Mhm.
Would I have liked to have made the kind of money they were making? Sure. But sports and horse racing are much bigger casinos than blackjack tables.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of going back to the skill set that you had or the kinds of professional gambling you were doing, what's the most amount of effort you ever put into mastering an advantage play skill? Would it be sequencing or something else more that took more time?
It would either be sequencing or shuffle tracking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to look back and remember how much time. Actually, you want to know? I actually think that I spent more time learning to count cards.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
That's really interesting.
Learning to count cards takes a long time. Learning basic strategy. Part of it was I couldn't go to a casino when I was first learning, right? So I probably spent a couple of 100 hours just working on basic strategy and playing and dealing to myself, trying to count in my basement. And the other thing is when you're shuffle tracking, you already know how to count cards. So that part is done, which is, a big portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I think about it, I probably spent more time learning to count cards than any of those others. And think about that. It's got the worst edge and the most amount of heat. And but it would not have led me into all these other things without that foundation.
Yeah. Well, and the Korea play was
yes. Yeah.
Card counting.
Yeah. Yep. That's true.
So any play that you initially identified that no longer exists that you can tell us about?
No, because just because I wouldn't want to talk about the kind of what it involved to make the play.
Sure. Well, here's maybe a different way of approaching it. Let's just take with hole carding. When you first started to see a hole card, what was that kind of discovery or diagnosis like? From going from, hey, I just saw a hole card to, kind of being able to play it.
Yeah, well, so Yeah. So I see a whole card. I'm on the game, and of course I play it. Then sort of the next step is two things. One, I have to go look at the charts, which the only charts around at the time were in Ken Houston's book that I'm aware of. And for what the right plays are. And, I need to put time into looking for this. Instead of just counting cards, I need to spend time looking for this. And again, just my superpower. I don't know that I don't know that I should be calling it that, but whatever. Very quickly, I started finding other whole card players and comparing notes and learning more because they were doing it too. You know what I mean? And that. So that was kind of the thought process.
Okay, yeah. Is that Ken Houston on Blackjack or?
I think it was in $1 Million Blackjack.
Okay.
I think it was in $1 Million Blackjack. Yeah.
Okay, I've got Ken Houston on Blackjack on my shelf right here. I think $1 Million Blackjack is in Vegas right now. My copy, but
that second the Ken Houston on Blackjack, I think that was his last book, and I think he took a lot of stuff from other books. So it would not surprise me if that chart is in there.
Okay. So yeah, you had to go from seeing it to knowing how to play it, to kind of scouting it, kind of shifting the way that you're approaching advantage play in the casino from just going to a table to play to, looking and seeing where you could find a whole card. And then it went to actually like refining it by sharing notes with other whole carders. Is that sum it up?
Yep.
And when you would go into casino scouting it, did you know the edge it had? Had that been well calculated already?
Well, no. I mean, the like the full whole card edge. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Both of them. The difference between a first baser and a full whole card. Those edges were not calculated correctly.
Wow.
And it wasn't until Grosjein's book that they were calculated correctly. They messed up on the insurance, as I recall. I think that was the problem. But it turned out that first basers were worth much more than what the book said they were worth.
And interesting.
We kind of felt like they were worth more. We saw the numbers. You got to remember, the numbers were not that great back then, and we saw the numbers and we were like, man, it feels like we're winning more than that. You know what I mean? But just to give you an example of the numbers, right? Arnold Snyder published this thing on depth charging, right? And he put the edge at, I think, 0.9. And we went out after Korea. We were depth charging on single deck, 7 spots, and, betting massive, 2 or 3 hands at 2,000, right? And just got massacred. And then when simulations started coming and getting more accessible and all that, numbers actually got ran, and it turned out that the edge was closer to like 0.6. And I remember Daryl went to Arnold and he was like, hey, we lost all this money we were betting. You said it was 0.9. It turned out he was 0.6. And he was like, oh, yeah, I guess I was wrong. So, I mean, I was not enamored of that play anyway. I was not enamored playing with less than a 1% edge.
Sure.
But, we had a massive bankroll at that point, and we thought, well, we can put a lot of money in action. But yeah, anyway.
So did you guys abandon that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think we had already abandoned it when the numbers came out later. But the thing is, so when I really started playing more whole cards, it was when I teamed up with Daryl and those guys, because I guess what some people would call front loaders, I don't know what to call them, but games where you see the card all the time.
Yeah.
Those were still pretty rare. But first basers were everywhere. And as I mentioned, I had a hard time reading first basers because I was short. And you have to kind of see over the dealer's hand that is protecting the hole card. And
Uh-huh.
so they were much taller than I was. And so when I teamed up with them, that's when we were playing a lot more hole cards, and I was then a BP, not a reader.
Okay. And that must have transitioned to you being more of a reader, or were you generally more the BP with?
I was generally a BP unless it was a regular like a hand dealt hole card where you need to be short. Then I could read those games, but we were playing probably 90% first basers and 10% of those kind of games.
Okay. So is there anything that you would consider the easiest play you've ever pulled off that you can share with us?
Yeah, I can't go into too much detail, but the easiest play, again, I got a call from a guy who was like, I have a play, do you want to do it? And, the EV is like, I forgot what he told me, 5,000 or 6,000 a day. And I was like, okay, yes, I'm willing to travel. And he says, okay. And he tells me where to book a flight. Can you come tonight? I was like, yes. I said, how much money should I bring? He said, oh, you probably need $40 or $50 for food.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's incredible.
I was like, okay. So of course I brought 10,000, he told me I didn't need any money, but as Grosjean says in his book, pack half as many clothes and twice as much money.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So I flew there, and it was a video poker game where it was a progressive, and for some reason they had put the straight flush progressive on the straight.
Oh, wow.
And so basically we just locked up the machine 24 hours a day, and we had kind of a minder sitting next to him so nobody could sit next to the person playing the machine and see what was happening. And it happened just at the right time of year where it was the busiest week of the year in that particular place. And so I think they were too busy to realize how much money they were losing.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a perfect storm. A lot of things went right. It was a 25-cent 10 play, so there were no W2Gs unless you hit a royal. So we never would hold a single high card because of hitting a royal. We did everything possible to not hit a royal. So it worked out, and we won a lot of money for, as you say, the easiest play imaginable.
So you actually told me this story in person. I didn't think you would share it on the interview, but it's just as fun hearing. I remember when you told me it just sounded too good to be true. But if people are out there, those things exist. Maybe once in a lifetime.
We've had a number of those stories on Gambling with an Edge. Where a $5 video poker is suddenly changed to a $1, but they don't reset the meters or something. Those things happen. If you're out there beating the bushes, eventually you're going to walk into a gold mine, or occasionally you're going to walk into a gold mine.
Yeah, I think about that with advantage play. It's kind of the idea of people create their own luck. If you learn the skills, if you put in the effort, you're going to come across something at some point. If
your mind is open. That's the other thing. One of the sort of flaws that a lot of card counters have is they walk into a casino with tunnel vision. They're going to go straight to the first blackjack table they see that, is empty or whatever, and just count cards. And they don't even look around at what else is there.
Yeah, that's definitely, I could say that's how we primarily did things, playing and running teams, and we made money doing it. But I've said this before, if I could do it over, I would have done a better job networking, and I would have worked harder at adding other tools to the tool belt. And I think that we could have, rather than the team making $3 million, we could have maybe made $10 million over that same, 5-year stretch or whatever it was. So you mentioned you've shared some of these stories on Gambling with an Edge. Well, Has a Gambling with an Edge interview ever led to advantage play opportunities for you?
I'm going to say it must have, but I can't think of one offhand. I mean, I've certainly gotten emails from people saying, "Hey, here's an opportunity," or whatever. Wow. Usually, I have not taken them up on it. Because, what's a great opportunity for one person, for me, I'm retired. But the other thing that's happened is, we have had people, because of their interview on Gambling with an Edge, they were contacted by other people who then they ended up doing things together. You know what I mean? And that always feels good when you can, it's horrible when it ends up being somebody who rips somebody off, but it's great when it ends up being a great partnership,
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to transition into a little bit more of kind of. By the way,
I'm trying to remember. I think it might be the episode coming out next week. We had a guy on a number of years back called Lone Wolf, who's a part-time player. And we had him come back, and because he plays now with his daughter. And so he came on with his daughter. And I have a feeling they're going to get that she's going to get a lot of emails, with a lot of offers. Because, she's got skills, and a lot of people would be in a better situation to use them than her father, because he works a regular job and he's only a part-time player.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, you'll have to have a third podcast with maybe with her down the road in a couple of years and find out where things led.
Yeah. Yep.
So I want to actually, one of our members wanted to know, you rarely give ideas is I think the understanding, but what has been your strategy for avoiding CTRs when playing higher limits?
Well, I've said this many times. After a play, I never ever cash out. Right? When you finish
what about
playing,
a CTR at the tables? If being in 10,000, or do you just avoid
that?
No,
I get in 9,000 and I have to stop. And that's why
regardless,
that's why you have and that's why you have a chip bank, right? Mm-hmm. You accumulate chips from the places you're going to play. And if we were going to go play a place and we did not have chips, let's say we were going to start play on Friday, well, a bunch of us would get there on Thursday and go in and buy as many chips as we can and not even play, just start accumulating chips.
Yeah, that's really smart. Okay, that's a great answer. What about disguises? I know Tommy Highland, he's used wigs, and so he's talked about that when we've asked him. Santa Claus, or he even had like a Hollywood makeup person, make him some stuff. Did you ever go that route?
Well, I did for the team. Because I was involved, I had worked with a special effects makeup artist. And so I did do that with the team to change their appearances. Daryl, when he first came back from Europe with the computer, I mean, he was probably the most notorious card counter in the United States at that time, right? I mean, and so he had lost a bunch of weight, and he got a perm and dyed his hair black, and he grew a goatee and dyed it black, and he got skin tint. And now he looked like he was African American. And he went to the DMV that way and had his driver's license picture taken that way. And he had a name change, right? And so he was playing as an African American guy. And he came back from a flight to Atlantic City. And I took him to go rent a car. And now he didn't have the disguise on. And he goes to rent the car, and he gives the guy his driver's license, and the guy goes, "You kind of lost your tan." And Daryl goes, "Oh, I was wearing a disguise." right? Like that's a legitimate answer to the guy. And the guy called the police. He thought it was a stolen driver's license. But anyway, so yeah, I did go that route with a lot of people. I didn't do anything that involved makeup. My hair has been every color. I've had perms, I've had long hair, short hair, facial hair, contact lenses, all that kind of stuff. And, I remember the first time that I started getting barred everywhere in Vegas, I realized I needed to change my look, right? And at the time, I had really kind of bushy, permed brown hair and these kind of dark tinted glasses and a mustache. So I cut the hair really short, took all the curl out of it, dyed it ash blonde, shaved, got contact lenses. And I thought, my neck is kind of recognizable. And so I wore a neck brace. And because I had the neck brace, I thought I'll use a cane, right? And my story, A, it'll change the way I walk. And B, my story will be I had a car accident.
Yeah.
So I go into the Sands and I start playing, and the shift manager is looking at me, and I can tell the way he's looking at me. He's like, boy, this guy looks familiar, but I don't know, who he is. Now, remember, the year prior, I had been dealing blackjack right across the street at the Castaways, right? So these people, they had seen me a lot. Yeah. And anyway, I'm playing. Everything is fine. And I see him go over and he talks to a dealer, and now they're both looking at me and they can't place me. And this woman pit boss comes into the pit and she goes, "What happened to you?" And I go, "Oh, I had a car accident." She goes, "No, I'm into your hair." She knew exactly who I was immediately. And I said, "Oh, I have a part in a movie in LA and they made me dye my hair." And she goes, "Oh, now she didn't know me as a card counter. She knew me as the dealer from across the street. But now she goes over and she tells the shift manager who I was. And now he comes back and, he's thinking any guy who changes his appearance this much must be up to something." Anyway, so basically I realized there's no way I'm going to be able to win any money at that point. So, I just
got
left.
out of there.
Yeah.
That's funny. I've got a few more questions if you're up for it. I know.
Sure.
This is really fun. Awesome. So, if your nephew or a close friend's son wanted to get into advantage play, what would be the top books you would recommend to them?
Well, it depends on how keen an interest I was going to take. So, if they wanted to be a card counter, I would recommend the book I now recommend to people is Blackjack Blueprint. By Rick Blaine, Night Train Blaine. I like that book a lot because it's not just the facts. It has stories in it. And I would also recommend your book, Colin, not to blow smoke up your ass because it's your podcast. But no, again, because it's got stories in it and you hear, what it's actually like. So now, in the case of my own son, I told him, you are not allowed to learn how to count cards. Because if you do, you're going to want to go do it. And unfortunately, there aren't really any books. I mean, Exhibit CAA is a tremendous book, but it's not a reference. It's a reference book. It's not going to teach you how to go out and make money. It's there. So, for example, back in the day when I first saw the whole card and was like, oh, I need to go learn the strategy. Well, there's the reference book that you go that has all the charts, right? So, but reading it is not going to teach you how to go out and be an advantage player. So, as far as I know, there is no book that's going to teach you those things.
It's really just going to come down to your network and ability to be taught the skills. Cool.
Yep. And how hard you're willing to work.
Yep. Good. That's fair enough. Well, let's say you could sit down with 21-year-old Richard Munchkin. Any top advice you would give?
You know what? I used to say that I regret not working harder when I was young and single, right? I mean, these hole cards were everywhere, and I could have worked a lot more hours. But now I look back at it and I go, well, why would that have been better? I mean, yeah, okay, I'd have more money in the bank, but I'm doing okay. So
Yeah.
I don't know that would have been better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any regrets,
I think that's fair. I think people need to kind of, this is the kind of final advice I always give at a boot camp, is to figure out if and how advantage play fits into your goals. Because
yeah, exactly. So winning isn't about having the most money. It's about being happy and enjoying your life. Like, I mean, could I go back to 21-year-old me and say, learn how to become a computer programmer and get involved in horse racing with Bill? Well, yeah, I would have made a lot of money, but would I have been happier? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that computer programming would have been the thing that makes me happy.
Yeah. No, I think that's good for people to hear, figure out how advanced
the other
play.
For me is, I like to say that the arts is a habit that you have to afford, right? It's kind of like heroin. And so, Daryl is a singer-songwriter. I'm an actor, filmmaker, but we chose gambling as a way to support that habit.
Yeah.
But those things brought me more joy than the actual gambling.
Yep. Yeah, I absolutely get it. People always want to know why I'm not out playing, and with what I'm able to do, I'm home with my kids. They're only going to be young for a little while, and to be able to be home with them, is worth, many years with Blackjack Apprenticeship. I made far less money than I was making playing or running teams, but I never regretted it, because I knew what was more important to me than making more money.
Yep.
A couple more questions for you. One of them, do you still play backgammon?
I was playing on my phone. The best backgammon program is called Extreme Gammon, and they made an app called XG. And I was playing on my phone. I had kind of gotten interested again. But then I don't think they're updating the app, and it does not work on my phone any longer. So basically, no. But a lot of my friends on Facebook are backgammon players, so I see positions all the time, right?
Okay.
People are posting positions and discussing them. So I'm still kind of peripherally interested, but I haven't actually been doing any playing.
Okay. So someone shouldn't contact you and say, as high of stakes as you'll play.
No.
So another question for you. You worked as a dealer when you first moved to Vegas from Chicago, I believe.
Just outside Chicago, yeah.
Would you ever consider, I mean, obviously you're retired, but ethically, would you have ever considered working for a casino again, or would that have just been too tough, having been on the advantage player side?
Oh, it wouldn't be tough at all.
Okay.
And I used to say, like, when I'm 80, I want to have a job dealing the big six, like one day a week, just like, that would be fun, I think. But, no, I mean, I have no reason to go work for a casino, but when I worked in the casino, I had a blast. I loved it because I was meeting card counters every day, and I would talk to them on the table, and I didn't bust people. I just I would deal them the best game they ever had in their life.
That's
I remember one time I was dealing to Peter Griffin single deck, and he says he doesn't have his bet in the square. I say, "Are you going to bet?" And he goes, "You only have 7 cards left." I go, "Yeah, there's only 2 of us, So I would deal people the best game they ever had.
Well, now you're going to get a lot of emails, people asking if you would start working for a casino again. So I got another one for you. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this, but people want to know, what's the Steven Seagal story?
Oh God, I I had a friend who was, they were shooting a Steven Seagal movie in Thailand. And my friend was working in the main office back in LA. And she's going through the cost reports and she's going through receipts and stuff. And she finds this person and she's like, who is this person on the payroll? Who is, I don't know who this person is and what is their job? And they say, oh, that person's job is to take the labels out of Steven's clothes and put in new labels that have smaller sizes because he's fat. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was
That's incredible.
It's just amazing. Like the stuff that they do to appease quote unquote stars.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
like,
there's
in his mind, did he really think like, oh, my jacket isn't a 48, it's only a 42? I mean, does he think he's losing weight?
Or does he not want someone to accidentally see the 48 in his jacket because they might, judge him for it? That's incredible. Guess. That's awesome. Well, we got to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Inquiring minds have wanted to know ever since you mentioned it.
Oh, by the way, I have another Steven Seagal story. So back when I was doing martial arts movies, Steven Seagal was kind of in his heyday. And there was a famous wrestler, not like professional wrestling like the BS stuff, but an actual like Greco-Roman wrestler guy. He was sort of the Michael Jordan of that. His name was Gene LaBelle. And after his wrestling, he became a stuntman. And so he would do a lot of these kind of movies. And at lunch one day, there were a bunch of actors and stuff sitting around, and the stuntmen were there. And one of the actors says, hey, Gene, like, what would happen if you and, Steven were to actually fight? And he said, well, I'd choke him out in less than a minute. And Steven Seagal was walking by and heard this. Now, Steven Seagal supposedly is this black belt Hapkido master, right? And thinks of himself as one of the best Hapkido guys in the world. And he's like, you're out of your mind. I would kick your ass and blah, 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 blah. And the next thing you know, like, he's like, we have to fight. And he's like, no, I can't do that. And he's like, yeah. We're going to fight right now, right? So Gene LaBelle is 60 years old at this point.
Oh, man.
And Gene LaBelle, and much shorter than Seagal. Gene LaBelle gets up, they begin the fight, and in like 30 seconds, he's knocked out Steven Seagal. He chokes him out. And he was fired off the movie and never worked on another Seagal movie again.
Oh, man. Yeah, I guess you don't, you don't make the talent
you don't make the star look bad. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Any more Steven Seagal stories you have?
No, that's... I'm drying that well.
What years were you making? It was primarily direct-to-video action movies? Yeah.
Action martial arts. I think my first movie was 88, and the last one was maybe, I don't know, 95 or something. And then I moved over from, what low-budget filmmaking teaches you really is you become ideally suited for television. And I moved over into television, and I got on a show. Actually, I think it's on Amazon Prime. It's called either LA Heat or LA Vice. I always get that confused. And I did 3 episodes, and it got canceled. And then I moved to a show on Animal Planet, and I did 6 episodes, and that show got canceled. And then all of a sudden, I hit a wall, and I couldn't find work anymore. And I eventually got sick and tired of calling people who never returned my calls. And I told all my friends in the film business, look, you know where to find me. I'm going back to gambling. If you need something, if you want me, call me. I'm happy to work, but I'm not going to beat my head against the wall with people who won't return phone calls.
Well, I am sure there are some films that you made that my dad rented, because that was our wheelhouse. My dad would rent, because I have an older brother, and we would watch, like a action martial arts. He'd get the 3 for $5 or 3 for $3.
Yeah.
And we would,
yeah.
or the grocery store, they would have these good deals, and that was, my mom worked nights, and we would just binge watch action movies. So
yeah, well, back then, kickboxing was the big thing.
Yes.
And so Bloodsport came out, and Kickboxer, and that was sort of the heyday, and that's when I was doing it, and so I was making films with guys like Don the Dragon Wilson and Cynthia Rothrock, and so for martial arts people back then, they would know those names, but other people, probably not.
Well, I'm sure we spent a Friday or Saturday night watching one of those movies. Well, thanks so much for doing this, and going way over an hour. I mean, I don't have any sponsors, so I don't have to stick to any schedule, but I really appreciate and respect your time. So thanks for doing this, and people know where to hear more from you on Gambling with an Edge. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you. And you guys can catch Richard on Gambling with an Edge. You can catch me on this podcast or at Blackjack Apprenticeship.